Okay, we are streaming once again. I'm just going to go check my home computer to see that everything looks good there, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we'll check audio one more time. Let me switch to my audio tab here. Test 1 2, testing 1 2 3. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Testing 1 2. Test. We're a little bit too hot, looks like, maybe. Test. That's too hot. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3 4. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3 4. Okay. I'm going to take off the headphones. All right, so what we have is the ATEM, the Blackmagic design, ATEM Television Studio. And that is the basis of the switching that's going on. And what we're doing is taking the program out of the switcher, going into another recording device, an intermediary device. In this case, it's a Atomos Ninja Blade. And then from that blade, we're going out to a Teradek video live streaming box that's going to the YouTube page. So how are we doing all of this stuff, and what kind of equipment do we have? So right now you're seeing me on camera 4, high camera 4. So basically what we're doing here is I've got my switcher box over to my left. You're seeing it on the right-hand side of your screen. And it has several one rack unit devices in that 4-unit rack. I've got the possibility of iPad control if I want to use an iPad with the switcher. I've also got my iPhone. I can use my iPhone to do some switching, and that is basically that's where we are with switching. The switcher kind of forms its own little network that you tie the machine to. So we have this laptop right here, this MacBook Pro, that is connected into the switcher. Actually, it's connected through a little wired and wireless router, a little portable unit that I'll show you in just a second. And basically what that does is it sets up a little network for me to connect my laptop to my switcher, but also give me wireless access to that switcher as well. If you had multiple people who were controlling the different aspects of the software, you've got the switcher itself, you've got media players that you can put up on screen, little bugs and little stingers and other wipes and miscellaneous graphics. You've got another audio tab that allows you to do the mixing. I'll talk about how we're getting audio into the system as well. And then you've got even camera control. In this case, we don't have cameras that can be controlled by the switcher, but the Blackmagic design cameras, the studio cameras, can be controlled with this switching software. What I don't have as an input that I'll probably add sometime in a future broadcast if we need to, is the actual switcher control software, and we'll talk about that later. But I want to give the broad overview, and I can show you this this screen with another camera that I'm going to introduce here in a second. So the inputs that I have, I've got, this is camera 4. Let me just switch to camera 5 real quick. Okay, camera 5 is actually pointing straight ahead, and I'll put my head in there. It's looking straight ahead, and I've got a projector on in the background with the UMW New Media website. Imagine that. So I've got 2 cameras in this situation. I've got a blank spot for a third camera. We're using Canon Vixia HV40s. They're a DV tape style camera, but they have an HDMI out, and we can take that HDMI and put it directly into the switcher. We're not doing that, however, because we're using a little different method for that. So we've got 2 camcorder cameras essentially going into the switcher. We've got a computer input. So let me just show you the Mac screen here real quick. Okay, so we've got a Mac desktop that we can bring into our switcher environment. We also have, and I'm going to start the recording here. I'm starting the recording on what's called the HyperDeck Shuttle. It's the Shuttle Pro. It's the 4K version. Allows us to record up to 4K with 4K input. So I've got a little shuttle recorder that's recording all this. So what I'm going to do is give you the tour of the ATEM switcher setup that I have. And the way that I'm going to do that, okay, again, let me remind you. So we're on camera 5 is here, okay? Camera 4, the Mac, back to camera 4. Okay, so we've got those inputs, but we've got one special little input that I want to introduce to you, and that is this one. And that is our GoPro camera. So I can really give you kind of a live view and try not to make you too dizzy with it, but I can give you a live view of kind of what I'm looking at and what I'm standing in front of, and hopefully zoom in on some of the stuff that we're showing you here. I did one of these in the old space, but we'll try to update this a little bit. It's a little bit of a mess here because I'm still plugging and unplugging some different cables, but let me just kind of give you the 50-cent tour here. So what you're looking at is the multi-view. So this is just a standard HDMI monitor made by ASUS, and it has what's called the multi-view on it. On the left-hand side is the preview. On the right-hand side is the program. It's what you're seeing right now. Then below that are the 8 different possible inputs that you can switch to. The lowest the top of those smaller screens is the GoPro. So you see this kind of doubling effect and meta effect that's going further and further, infinite effect that's going in there. The next one over from that is the computer input. That's just a little Mac Mini. There's the Mac Mini. Okay. Camera 3 I'm not using right at the moment. I don't have the media player media up yet for 1 or 2. Then there's camera 4, which is what we started with. Camera 5 is that one that's forward facing. And then there's this last input that is actually called the shuttle, and that is the HyperDeck shuttle. It's a basically, there's no more videotape. We actually record directly to solid state drives. So there's a solid state drive in there right now recording whatever we have coming out of program, which is again up here. All right. So with my GoPro camera, I'm going to go a little bit further. What we're doing, so we've got the multi-view, but I like to know exactly what's going out over the program output. So down here, I have what's called a little Ninja blade by a company called ATEM. And what I'm doing is taking the program out of the switcher into the Ninja blade, and then out of the Ninja blade, that cable goes to, and hopefully my camera will reach somewhat. Hang on one second. It's crash cam. Okay, so right over here we have the Teradek video box, and if I can switch it around just so you can see the front of it. So basically, we are live streaming to this program, the event that EV stands for event. We're streaming this event called the ATEM Switcher Tour to YouTube right now, and we're streaming at 720p. We're using a wired Ethernet cable out of the box. So in the back here, what you've got basically are on the left power. In the middle, you've got the Ethernet cable, and then on the right-hand side, you've got the HDMI cable coming out of the Ninja Blade, and that's program output. Okay, so that's the video streaming box. And so here's what the switcher software, what the switcher interface looks like, and you see my reflection there talking in the background. So I'm just holding up the GoPro in front of the switcher interface. And so what we've got here, I'm just going to kneel down and get to keyboard level. So what we've got is the interface, and I'll try to point it, turn the monitor laptop here. So it's a little easier to see here. It would be better to have this as an input, so I'll do that at some point. But basically what we have is a preview bus on the bottom and a program bus at the top. And right now the red button at the top left means that the GoPro is selected. Next to that is the Mac, and then camera 3, which we don't have, camera 4, camera 5, black, and then you can choose between colors. The sixth input is the shuttle, which we won't use because we're actually recording to it. And then you got things like bars and a media player. And then we've got on the right-hand side of this, let me just kind of zoom in here. This is where you have transitions. So when I want to do a cut, I can just do a basic, pop that button. If I want to do the transition, like a dissolve, I can choose the auto. And what I can also do is just do a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to switch to camera 4 really quick by hitting the space bar. Okay, so here I am over at the computer. I'll hit the space bar again to bring us back to our GoPro input. So it's just space bar to do a basic cut. If I want to do a transition, I can hit the return key, and that'll do just a dissolve. So hit the return key again, and we're back to our GoPro input. Okay, so the Mac Mini that we have right next to this, that's the basic switcher interface. We'll show you that in detail some other time. So in the Mac Mini on the back, we've got basic USB keyboard and mouse. Next to that, we have a mini DisplayPort to DVI adapter that's going also to the same Asus monitor. I can switch back and forth between the multi-view and the output from the Mac so that I can get a full screen view of the Mac and see what I'm playing out into the switcher. But I could play things like YouTube videos or whatever content that I have on the hard drive, being careful not to play stuff from commercial or things that will get me dinged for copyright violations and that kind of thing. I've got no internet or wired connection going into this Mac at this point, and then the final input there is just the power. So let me get my GoPro camera oriented again to kind of give you the overview. Let me go over to the switcher side of things. So this is the rack that we have that has all the equipment in it. All right. So let me give you try to get you the least distorted view that I can give you. So on the top is the ATEM Television Studio from Blackmagic Design. Right below that is a 6-channel mixer that I'm not using at the moment. Below that is a Blackmagic Design HyperDeck Shuttle Pro, and that you'll notice it's got the red recording light on it. And if I go in just a little bit closer, you can see that the time code is counting up, and there's a little preview of what we're seeing. So it's recording the the GoPro input into the shuttle, so it's recording everything that we're doing and also recording the audio from our inputs as well. And then below that is just a basic a Furman power conditioner that has multiple power ports in the back of it, and it's even got an outlet on the front that we can use. So that's what's in the rack. And it's just sitting on another rack, but this is a portable unit that we can put the faceplate on and carry to where we need it to go. So let's move across here, and hopefully we can get again some more cable to show you some of the final pieces of the puzzle. So next to our computer, our MacBook Pro. And I'll come back to the MacBook Pro in a second. But so just a pair of headphones. We've got a little Mackie mixer that's on the table here. And it's just a 4-input, 4-channel mixer, 2 XLRs and 2 1/4-inch inputs. And then what we're doing is we're taking the unbalanced audio out, and that cable will go over to our Canon Vixia camcorder that is providing us with this audio right now. So then that audio comes out of the back of the camera in HDMI, and it goes into a box, again made by Blackmagic Design, that is a HDMI to SDI converter. And so that SDI can come out and go into our switcher. And it's not always necessary to do that, but the reason we're going to use it in this case is because we need to go a particular distance from the camera back to the switcher. And if you're running a long distance, you may know that HDMI doesn't travel very far without kind of losing some of its signal. So anything we've tested some things, and we've had some 6-foot cables that work fine, and then when we hook up 25-foot cables, it doesn't work very fine. So somewhere probably in the 10-foot and beyond range, it stops working from these particular cameras. So we need to run HDMI out of the camera and into the converter box, and then down back over the cable back to our switcher. Okay, so that's kind of what we're using in both instances, and the camera over in the distance there, camera 4, is set up the same way. It's running it's running HDMI out of the Vixia camcorder into a mini converter box, and then down the swirly little cable there that's on the floor, and then back over to the switcher. So those are the 2 Vixia cameras that we have that are running into the ATEM switcher. All right. The GoPro camera. How am I getting the GoPro in? Well, the GoPro has a micro HDMI port in it. So I've got a micro HDMI cable on one end and a standard HDMI in the other, and that's just running into input 1 on the switcher. So the GoPro is our first input over here on the left-hand side. And just to prove this, what I'll do is I'll switch to camera 5. And I'll put the GoPro up to the camera and show you that that is just attached to the micro HDMI cable. And we're picking back up again with the GoPro camera. So, and I've taken, there's an on-screen display that normally you would see on the GoPro camera. I've just turned the on-screen display off. Under the settings and things, it's labeled OSD. And our computer has gone out, so let me just hit the keyboard here and wake up our computer. So if we did switch to the Mac, which is input 2, we would be able to play QuickTime videos and other things from the Macintosh, or show a web browser. We could open up a web browser if we had a network connection attached to that, but we don't right at the moment. So let's go back to our switcher interface, and maybe what I'll do is, sorry about that, let me just set down my GoPro camera for just 1 second. And what I'll do is I'm going to move my laptop back here and see if we can't get a little better view with the Vixia camera. Not too great, but it's workable. So let me just preview what that looks like. You can kind of get the idea. I'm not going to be able to show great detail, and we'll show this, like I say, like I've been saying, in a future episode. So, so here's what the interface looks like, and let me turn it so maybe there's a little bit less glare. All right, so there's the switcher interface, and what I've got, and you can see me in the background in the reflection. So what I've got are cut and auto buttons. Cut just does exactly what it says. Auto does the dissolve. So the other tabs that we have here, there's a media tab, and so what I can do here is bring in any graphics and things that I want to be able to use to put on the screen. So I'll go into my favorites, go into example graphics, go into photos, and HyperDeck Studio Pro. Let's drag this into the media player. And it takes a few seconds for it to load, but then what we have is on the right hand side you can see part of the picture. We've got a graphic that represents the Studio Pro. So if I go back to the switcher and I pull up Media 1, here's just a graphic still of, let me just check my audio, make sure that we're still, yep, okay. It's just a still image of the HyperDeck Studio Pro kind of in action, and she's got her hand on one of the SSD drives that would be part of the shuttle, and you can there's space for 2 of the drives, so you would be recording to 1, and then when the second one, or when the first one fills up, it'll start recording automatically to the second one, and then you can pull out the first drive and put in a third drive, and then when the second one is done, you'll record back to the first one, or the third one. I know it gets confusing, and hopefully you label your drives. And then let's go back to our media page. So if I want to show you what the switcher looks like, we've got one of these as well. It's an ATEM 1ME switcher. So I'm just going to load this particular image into the media player 2, and in just a few seconds I will switch to that input and show you what the ATEM 1ME, this is the broadcast panel. So you can get a full-on broadcast panel with hard buttons and joysticks and T-bars and all that kind of stuff to use. And I'm looking for, yeah, well, here's what I'll do is I'll show you what the Blackmagic Studio cameras look like. And we'll have some of the Blackmagic Studio cameras in our studio, or recording studio, when that's finished, but that's maybe a few weeks or months away. So let me bring in our graphic onto our Media 1 player and bring that back up. So this is what the studio camera looks like. It's the Blackmagic Studio camera, and it basically is a 10-inch LCD monitor on the back there, and then you have SDI in and out, and a large zoom lens on a tripod, and so it's basically to be used in a studio, but you can certainly use these outside of a studio if you have a portable unit. So that's the basic idea. Let me switch back to camera 5 here, which is our switcher interface. So we've been looking at this media interface, and the next interface over, so again, these are the images that I had put into those banks, and you can, if you want to add more images, you just drag them over to the media player side, and this green dot over here tells you that it's live, and so forth. on the audio panel, so here's our audio levels, and we've got a few things going on here right now. Over on the far left is our GoPro camera, so there's audio coming into the built-in microphone there. We don't want that on air, so we've got it turned off. But I would turn it on here with this on switch. We've also got audio. We would have audio coming out of the Mac, but we don't have that right at the moment. There is no camera 3. Camera 4 is just picking up essentially the room audio, but we don't want to have that kind of general audio in our system. What we're using is camera 5 and using the built-in microphone and running our mixer into camera 5. And then we have the shuttle, which is picking up what we're recording, so that's why you're seeing an audio level in this. But in other instances, we might use the shuttle to play back a video into our environment, and then we would click this on to go live. And then we have the external output, and we're not using that right at the moment. And then we have our master volume, which is actually sending this stuff out through, or it's showing us what the master volume is out, and that's going out HDMI through program to our recording and streaming device. Okay. The final tab here isn't useful in this situation, but you can actually go in and you can control your studio cameras from here. So you've got different parameters here: lift, gamma, and gain. You've got different you've got gain settings down here. You've got shutter speeds. You've even got focus control. So if you can click this button to do a quick focus if you want to. And so this would be on any camera that would be supported by Blackmagic. So none of these cameras are that way. It'll show you what camera is currently on and currently selected. So let's go back to our switcher interface. And that's pretty much it for the switcher. We are using YouTube live streaming, live events, to do our media. So let's get our camera 4 back up here. So we're sending this out again through Ethernet through our network, and it's going up to YouTube. So not only are we recording this over on the shuttle in the rack, but we're also recording it to YouTube. And I'm just noticing that my GoPro is facing down. So, but since that's not on right now, it doesn't matter all that much. Now it's pointing to the ceiling. So we've got kind of redundant recording. We've got the recordings that get made at YouTube, but we also have the program out going into the shuttle, which we can go back and we can edit at a later time, and use that for other purposes. And there's also in some of these switchers, we've got auxiliary outputs, or what are sometimes called clean feeds as well, where you might put graphics, and that's another piece that I'm not going to be able to show you right at the moment, but that's another piece, is that there are built-in keyers in the switchers as well. So if you want to put up lower thirds, or if you want to do chroma key and things like that, there's all kinds of ways to do different kinds of keys and put graphics upstream and downstream, that kind of thing. So it's a pretty capable switcher, and I haven't even, in the 20 minutes that I've been talking here, haven't even been able to show you all those details, and hopefully we'll be able to show you some more details as we go along, and maybe sometime give you an even smoother demonstration of all this stuff. But this is kind of the first time that I've set everything up over in our new building. But I wanted to at least give you kind of a preview, and we'll be using this streaming kit coming up next weekend for an event, Open VA, down in Virginia Beach. So if the streaming and technical gods are with us, that'll be happening then. So so basically that's it. I'll show you more things later, again specifically talking about keying. We'll give you some real detailed looks at the switcher software interface. We'll also talk a little bit about the iOS apps that are available that allow you to kind of monitor and or switch the interface. So like from my iPhone or from my iPad, I can connect to the little mini network that is set up and actually do the switching from those iOS devices. So it's quite a capable system, and for generally not too much money. The ATEM switcher itself is about $1,000 or a little less. So that's the key part of this. And if you have basic camcorders with HDMI cables, you can set this up relatively inexpensively. The streaming box, the Teradek video box, that is a little bit kind of a pricey box for what it for how small it is, but it also is hugely capable and makes things really easy to stream. Once you set it up to YouTube's parameters or other server parameters, it's just a matter of pushing a red start and stop button, and everything is almost kind of taken care of for you. So once you set up your event in YouTube, you choose it on the video box, it knows your account, and you click start, and it's ready to go, and it's streaming. So I'll hit the stop button as soon as we're done, and then it will communicate what it needs to YouTube and stop the stream. So that's pretty much it for now. I hope this has been helpful. I will try to answer any questions that folks might have. You can put stuff in the comments. I guess I'm supposed to point down right now and point towards the comments on YouTube. But there's a lot of capability here, and we're just starting to see what the boundaries are. But tons of people are using these in a lot of different environments and are really quite happy. There's a real kind of vibrant community of Blackmagic users. Blackmagic of late has been very responsive to some of with software updates in their cameras and in their switchers and in other devices to give you some more capabilities. So hopefully they won't stop, and we'll keep adding neat functionality in these and turn it into a relatively inexpensive switching device. There aren't really many other choices in the $1,000 range as far as it comes to multiple input switchers that will bring in HDMI and SDI. The next ones start in the neighborhood of about $4,000. So it really is a low entry point in terms of doing live production and live video switching with multiple possibilities, multiple inputs and that kind of thing. So we're happy so far with what it can do, and we'll show you some of the more advanced equipment that Blackmagic has when we show you the studio or go into a different kind of production environment on a offsite or down in our atrium in our new building, that kind of thing. So hopefully you'll see more of the building besides just the whiteboard that's behind me in the incubator classroom. And I'm going to tilt my other camera back up here and widen out our view to give you just a little bit more of a. So here's a little bit more of the classroom that I'm in. It's really kind of set up in a neat way. We've got two projection screens in the front, and then we've got these kind of floor boxes with monitors with inputs attached to those, and so we can use those to kind of display our cameras and computers and other things. And we also have things called Air Media, which basically is like AirPlay for everything. So it allows you to send your screens to the Air Media box and then display that on the projectors or these monitors. So, and then we have our old green screen. Remember our green screen from DuPont? That has come over with us, and we've had some students who are excited about using that, and at least up into the point where we get our full green screen studio set up down in the first floor of this building. So this is the incubator classroom, and that's where I've been broadcasting from today. So again, we'll update this or add little pieces to this to show you what our production looks like, and again, maybe do a more polished version of this particular demonstration. But just wanted to give you a brief look at, well, probably not that brief anymore, but just to look at what we've got set up for live production with an inexpensive switcher. So hope you've enjoyed this. Subscribe to our channel. Click on the subscribe button. And we'll see you next time.